even in this chair. Okay. Good morning and welcome to From the Heart Conversations with Patty that are about heart health. Today I have a really special program with a really special person. Her name is Stacy Quinn, and she is a most resilient stroke survivor. She's going to share a compelling story with us about what happened to her and help us gain a better understanding of what a stroke even is, what warning signs might be, and how to advocate for yourself to be heard by the doctors, the ER, wherever you are when you're not feeling right. So, because life can change in the blink of an eye, we all need to be the CEO of our own health. I'm really excited to hear what she has to share with us. So, Stacy, welcome. And before we dive into the questions, give us a little about your professional background.
Sure. Thank you, Patty, so much for having me. And I just also want to take a moment to congratulate you on your Women of Impact nomination. And thank you for all that you're doing to raise awareness of heart disease and stroke in women. You are saving lives, Patty. So hi, everyone. You're welcome. It's nice to meet you. I'm Stacy Quinn. I am a stroke survivor, but by day, I'm a communications professional that works in the pharmaceutical industry. And then by night, I do a lot to raise awareness of heart disease and stroke in women. And when I'm not doing that, I'm out shoe shopping. I love buying shoes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And just so everyone knows how I met you. You and I met because of the work we do with American Heart Association. There's an annual luncheon, the Go Red for Women program every year, the silent auction that happens every year. And unfortunately, we're having you do it all virtually again. But I met you along with a really great group of ladies who are heavy hitters when it comes to advocating to help women take better care of themselves. So I had my heart attack when I was 54, and which was almost 3 years ago to age me. And I've learned a lot about heart disease since then. When you and I spoke, you really enlightened me about strokes. And, I felt kind of bad because, to be honest with you, I've really understood what a stroke is. And this, despite the fact that my mother had multiple strokes in her lifetime, and she ultimately had a massive stroke and fell into a coma, and she passed away when she was 77. So you'd think I would have made it a point to be a little more knowledgeable about strokes and heart issues, and I wasn't. So can we start by just talking broadly about what strokes are before we get into your personal story?
Sure, absolutely, Patty. So what happens is a stroke occurs when there's blood supply to part of your brain is interrupted or reduced. So what happens with this, it deprives your brain tissue of oxygen and nutrients. And I think you can kind of think about it a little bit like your cell phone, right? If your cell phone doesn't have enough bars, enough Wi-Fi connection, you can't make a telephone call, your call won't go through. So it's a little bit similar to a stroke. And what happens within minutes of a stroke, brain cells start to die. So stroke is always a medical emergency. And if you're having one, you need to get medical attention as quickly as possible by calling 911.
That's really scary because and I know you're gonna share this in your story, because it sounds like with a stroke you not always know that it's happening, whereas with a heart attack, well, even with a heart attack, I think we all know you don't always know when you've had that either. So what are some different types of strokes that women can have?
So Patty, it's really important to note that these strokes aren't isolated to just women. Anyone can have these two types of strokes, whether it be even babies have strokes, children have strokes, young people have strokes. I think, just to backtrack a little bit, when people think of stroke, they see a picture of an older man and they think, oh, it only happens to them, but it can happen to anyone. So you have two types of strokes. One is caused by blood clots, and the other is actually caused by bleeding. So one of the types of strokes that you can have is a TIA, which is a transient ischemic attack. A lot of times this is called a mini stroke because it's caused by a temporary clot. So the blood will stop for a second, you'll have some symptoms, but things will go back to normal. So this is really scary because things go back to normal and you think, oh, that was just a blip, I was stressed out or something happened, but those need to be taken extremely seriously. And the other stroke, and those usually account for about 80% of strokes. The other stroke is about 20% of strokes. It occurs when a weakened blood vessel ruptures. And that is usually, a lot of times, they attribute those to uncontrolled high blood pressure. So a lot of times these are caused by aneurysms or artery malformations that happen.
Yeah.
But again, these can happen to anyone, Patty, so not just women.
Well, and I do remember I was with my mother, I think in her 60s, and we were at her office, my brother and me and my mother, going over some work. And all of a sudden, my mother's right when she was right-handed. She's writing, and her arm just lost control. And just skidded all the way across the table. And we all stopped in our tracks and looked at her arm, and we had no idea what had just happened. And I'm thankful that my mom's one of those people that when something happens, she runs to the doctor, and she did find out I had a mini stroke. That was the very first one. I understand from you that stroke is the third cause of death in women. So, is there anything that can spark a stroke?
There are, Patty. There are a few things, according to the American Stroke Association. So, pregnant women are 3 times more likely to have a stroke than non-pregnant women in the same age category. Also, women who have high blood pressure during pregnancy, that's something that can spark a stroke. I think a lot of people have heard about this, but birth control pills, that's a huge risk of taking birth control pills, is a stroke. The same thing goes with hormone replacement therapy. And then women that have quivering or an irregular heartbeat are at a higher risk for stroke than women who aren't.
Wow. Okay. All right. I want to get into talking about you because I just blown away by what happened to you and so young. Will you give us a high level summary of what happened to you, what the symptoms were that you experienced leading up to it, and then what happened after?
Sure. So for me, everything started with a really sudden, severe headache. You know, Patty, if I had to describe it, it was the worst headache of my life. But I was, it was around the holidays. I was really busy, Christmas shopping, Christmas parties, all the stuff that we're doing. It was the end of the year and I worked in financial services, which is a really busy time. So I just thought I was tired and stressed out, and this brought on the headache. So I was actually on my way to work when the headache began. So as soon as I got off the train, I was going into the city. I said, you know what, I'm gonna run in Starbucks, get some caffeine, and I'll be fine. So I got to my desk, drank my coffee, started doing my work. The head is still throbbing. And then I had to meet with my new boss. So I sit down with her to update her on a project. And I start slurring my speech. And I was frightened at the time, Patty, because for the first time since I was a little kid, I couldn't string together a sentence. But as soon as it happened, boom, my language goes back. I update her on the project. Then I have the blip a second time and I'm like, wow, this is really strange. She asked me if I'm okay, goes back to normal. I continue updating her on the project.
Did it happen again on the same day?
It happened within like a couple of minutes within each other. I just, I started gearing up, talking, and then again, boom, there it was. I couldn't put together a sentence.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Continue.
No problem. So from there, I was a little frightened. So I sent like a message to my mom and I said, I had this really weird experience in my boss's office. I slurred my speech. And then my mom, who, she tends to overreact a bit. She starts like calling my cell phone. She's emailing me. She's like, "You're having a stroke, go to the hospital." And I thought, she's overreacting again. I wouldn't have a stroke. So I came to an agreement with her that I was going to urgent care that night. And I did. And the doctor looked at me. He's like, "You're fine. You're just stressed out. Sounds like you have a lot going on. Here are some pills." He sent me on my way. Took the pills. Still didn't really do anything for my headache. It's throbbing. And now we're a few days later. I go back to urgent care where the doctor looks at me. Now I have an ear infection. Gives me the ear drops. I still take ATVs. But now, Patty, we're 10 days since the slurred speech, a sudden severe headache, other symptoms are adding on. I'm nauseous. I look terrible. So finally I said, I just Googled a neurologist down where I worked. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go see a doctor, someone that specializes in this. I went in, he looked at me and he's like, "Think you're fine." But I'll never forget these words he said to me. He goes, "I leave no stone unturned. So I'm sending you for an MRI and an MRA, which is a scan of your brain and neck that night." I said, "You know what, doctor, I'm really busy. Can we push this off a few days?" He said, "I'll only let you push it off one day, but you need to get this." So I got the test. The next day, within hours, the doctor's calling me and he said, "I have a team waiting for you. You're going to have a catastrophic stroke. You need to get to the hospital as soon as possible." So as you can imagine, Patty, it was pretty frightening. But when I got to the hospital, I learned that one of my internal carotid arteries, this delivers blood from your heart to your brain, had basically dissected, creating a really bad traffic jam. And I only had 10% of blood flow going through that artery to my brain.
Okay. So, and tell us again how old you were. You were 30?
I was 41 at the time.
Oh, you were 41.
41.
Okay. That's you, and that's very young. So you have surgery, and then what happened?
So actually, I was lucky, Patty. I ended up not having surgery. It took them a long time to figure out what to do with me because where my artery dissected, I had a pseudoaneurysm. And after some tests and some really a lot of people looking at my case, they decided not to do surgery because it was too risky. So they put me on a cocktail of medicines. Which I'm super lucky. My blockage actually went from 90% to 40. They didn't think I'd heal that much, but I got some of my blood flow back just taking some medicine. So I was very fortunate.
We're going to talk about medicines in a little while. Okay. You told me when we spoke that if you get help immediately, your outcome will be better. So why is it that women pay heed to any type of warning sign and listen to their body?
Well, with stroke, every minute counts. So you lose 2 million brain cells every minute a stroke goes untreated. And, stroke is a medical emergency, but really the thing is if you get help quickly, your outcome can be really good because they can do stenting, there's clot busting medications that they can use. So time is of the essence, which can reduce, the chances for permanent disability and other long-term health issues. I think had I would have gotten help faster, the blockage wouldn't have it was like a traffic jam. It kept building up. I think that a lot of people that have what I have, their artery fully heals. I probably would have healed had I not been one of those people who said, it's not going to happen to me.
I don't even think you knew a stroke. I don't even know that a stroke, you really thought that was happening. And like me, you had the EKGs done, and and they came back clean. They said you're okay. And you hear you're okay. You're like, okay, I'm okay. And that wasn't the case. And I think we've learned that even with getting the EKG, when you've been assured you're okay, that you still have to continue paying very close attention to your body and what it's, because it will tell you, your body will tell you. And that's where that advocacy comes in, when we've got to be, and that is actually, I know for you and me both, and for a lot of women that you know, we had to push to get answers before it was late. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, if I had it, Patty, to do all over again, I would have pushed harder. But and this is why I tell people you need to be the CEO of your own health. Like, even the night, if I go back where I was in the urgent care,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just dismissed because it was stress. And I also think I didn't look the part. I was a healthy young woman.
Right.
That does, I think that doctor would thought that wouldn't happen to her. So if I had it to do it all again, I would have asked more questions, and I would have demanded medical tests rather than someone just scanning me, looking at me, talking about a couple of my symptoms and sending me home with medication. That was my mistake. But I'll tell you, Patty, I will never make it again. Even with my ongoing care, I know everything about my condition. I know the questions to ask. And I always make sure that I know when I need to go to my appointments, when annual tests are up, that I go and I do them.
Yeah. And I do the same thing. And I think doctors actually respect us more because we ask a lot of questions. And if we don't agree with anything, we try to find another solution with them. And I think they like that. They actually like to have an involved patient. And if you're with a doctor that doesn't appreciate that, finding a doctor.
Exactly.
I think that's important. Yeah. So, okay. So after your stroke, talk to us about what happened with your lifestyle, professionally and personally.
So I had, it was a bit of a recovery. I went from being someone that could hold a plank for 30 minutes in the gym to being told I had to start back at the gym doing a few minutes on the treadmill at a time, which was really hard to accept that, I didn't have the old life that I had, but I worked up towards it again, and I'm proud of that. I think also one of the things I learned, especially when I left the hospital, like, I looked like myself. I didn't have any external scars. I looked like the same Stacy people knew. And I think people saw me and said, oh, she's fine, that I didn't need the help and the support and the kindness that I needed at that time, because I was struggling emotionally. I mean, the doctor said I had an angel on my shoulder that I didn't die. So you think about, well, why am I still here? What's my purpose? I was also at risk for another stroke within the next 90 days of that. So every night I went to bed, I prayed that I would wake up. So that takes a toll, but I was really surprised that people who I thought would support me were just like, you look fine, get over it. So that was really eye-opening to me and hard to accept at first. But then again, I had people who I didn't think would reach out, that were there for me, that, offered to clean my house, do my errands, or do what they could to help me. So I think my takeaway for people there is, you always need to be kind to people, because you never know what's going on, and you just can't assume because someone doesn't have an external scar or isn't visibly sick that they're okay.
Right. Didn't you also end up leaving the financial sector after the stroke?
I did, Patty. I gave myself some time to heal. The job, they were very supportive of me. I gave myself some time, but I realized that the fast pace of the job, the commute to New York, a car, 2 trains, a subway, and a walk was just too much for me. So I ended up finding a job that was closer to home. And also got back into the healthcare industry. After what happened to me, I realized how important the healthcare industry is, and that I wanted to try to help people and make a difference again. So I ended up, despite I really enjoyed that job, I just thought it wasn't the best thing to continue for my health.
Yeah, I think you made the right decision. I really do. All right. So that kind of brings me into talking a little bit about something that's important to me because from a work standpoint, I know what my boundaries are, and I know when I start feeling stress, I feel it here in my chest, so I have to really respect that. And I'm torn at times about whether to convey that to a client or not. Are they going to see me as weak? Are they going to pull projects away from me? Are they going to ghost me because I've made them uncomfortable? And so for you, because you're so young and you're at the top of your career, and having left one industry and gone into another, how did you set the professional boundaries? Because that really requires so much vulnerability with the company you're working for.
You know, it is hard because I was always, Patty, someone that won 100,000 miles a day. You know, I've just gotten good at setting the boundaries, and I know what my boundaries are. So you said you get a tightness in your chest when you get stressed out. My head starts to hurt, and that scares me because that every time I get a headache, I just think back to that time, and I think, oh my gosh, is this another one along those ways? But you know, I'm very open and transparent with my manager, who was really supportive. And I pace myself. I take breaks. I used to, sit 24 like in front of the computer and not take a lunch. I try to set boundaries and take my breaks throughout the day too, because also with working from home and being virtual, that's also been another challenge because you're kind of available and on 24/7.
Okay. So you love the terminology, which I think maybe you coined, be the CEO of your health. And you mentioned it earlier, so you talk a little more about what that mean and just kind of hammering home about why women have got to have better control over their heart health and communicating with medical professionals.
So yeah, I always say you need to be the CEO of your own health. And it really boils down to no one knows your body better than you. So had I been the CEO of my own health at the time of my stroke symptoms, I would have said, "Wow, Stacy, you don't get headaches like this. This is unusual. You need to get help now." So it's about recognizing what's wrong with your body. It's also about taking care of yourself. I will admit, at the time of my dissection and my stroke, I wasn't taking the best care of myself. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't eating right, and I was burning the candle at both ends. Now, I don't know why, Patty, this happened to me. It's, one of those things that happens to 1 in 100,000 people, but I can't help but think some of those ways that I was not taking care of myself contributed. So being the CEO of your own health is taking care of your body. And also it's things like making sure you get your annual checkup. I mean, Patty, I think a lot of women postpone this because they get busy. They have other things to do, and don't put themselves first to make sure they get that checkup. And just like if you were going to meet with your tax advisor, you'd prepare for that meeting, right? Well, you also need to prepare for that meeting with your doctor. Family history is so important. Knowing your history of stroke, heart disease, and relaying that to your doctor, because that may make the difference of them monitoring you in a different way, getting annual tests. And a lot of us just go in, let them check us, and we leave. But we need to make sure that's a discussion and that it's a two-way discussion. I think that in today's world, high-tech world, I don't think we get enough sleep. And that is really important. You need to get at least what they say is 8 hours a night, but most of us don't get that. Lack of sleep is really connected to heart disease, and it's also linked to high blood pressure. So, I mean, that's a simple thing we can all do for ourselves, right? Make sure that we get enough rest. And one of the biggest ones that we've talked about, Patty, is stress. We all need to stress less. And set those boundaries with our job and with our personal life, because really Stress leads to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, inactivity, overeating, and all of those things are huge risk factors for stroke and heart attack.
Yeah. And the cholesterol and the blood pressure is a slow volcano that happens over time. I think that my blood pressure probably was happening over a period of years, and the volcano, and I eventually erupted. And I'm the same way as you are. I wasn't, it's almost like I was self-sabotaging because I was so immersed in my career in go, and I just disregarded some really strong signs that my body was giving me. And afterward, I love your term about being CEO of your own health, because I've gotten so much smarter since my heart attack and everything that happened after that. And a large part of that is because I have a great doctor on my team who is very kind and caring, and we have a great relationship. Going to be with me for the rest of my life, right? And so I appreciate you talking about that. Is there anything else that you want to share, everyone, before we wrap this up?
Sure. Well, Patty, I think you make a great point that you said you have a great medical team. I think that's another thing about being the CEO of your own health. If you're not getting the care and the response that you need from your medical professional, you need to fire them and find someone else. Like, that's really important as well, that if you're not getting the care that you need, there's someone else out there. You can get a recommendation from a friend. You can call your health insurance and ask for some people in your area that in that care area. But I think that you made a really good point there, Patty. Having a good team on your side is important.
It is. It is. Okay, well, we covered a lot today. Do you have any other parting words at all?
I think just one other parting word is we talked about stroke symptoms, but I just want to leave everyone with a really easy way to remember stroke symptoms. It's called FAST. So these are the symptoms, the primary symptoms of a stroke. F is for face, if someone's face is drooping to one side. A is for arms, if someone's arm is weak and they can't lift it or they're having trouble raising it. S is for speech. We talked about that, slurred speech. If you think someone's having a stroke, ask them to repeat a simple sentence like, is the sky blue? Can they do that? And T is for time. If you have any of those symptoms, you only need one, you should call 911 immediately. And also, please, please remember, the onset of a sudden severe headache is very serious. And if you have that, you should call 911 or get to the ER as fast as possible.
Okay, that headache again, that's not like a one-off. That's over a successive period of time.
Patty, it can be over a period of time, but a lot of ways these start is like the onset of a sudden severe. You would describe it like I was describing it of, this is the worst headache of my life. That isn't normal. So if you get that, and you shouldn't wait a few days to see if it goes away, you should get medical attention as soon as possible.
Okay. It's so scary. I think a stroke is almost scarier than a heart attack. I really do. It's just so, I think it's such a misunderstood. And I hope that we're able to continue research with it and educating and advocating and being aware, because it may not be us. When you talk about FAST, it may be a loved one or a friend. And even the advocacy, it's not only for ourselves, but it's awareness, because it can be someone else's life that we help save. So thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for all the work you do in the Community American Heart Association, and thank you for supporting my Woman of Impact campaign. And I look forward to seeing you soon, and deeply appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Patty. And thank you for all that you're doing to raise awareness of stroke and heart disease in women. And it was an honor to be part of your program.
Thank you. Okay. Say goodbye.
Bye.